What Lewis and Clark were seeking so hopefully was a water route from the Atlantic to the Pacific. They followed the mighty Missouri River across the plains, followed the tributaries of the Missouri up into the Rocky Mountains, came up this very pass toward the Continental Divide, still following the water, and came at last to this. Meriwether Lewis knelt down here, cupped his hands, and drank from this stream, this rivulet, on Monday, August 12th, 1805. It was not exactly the navigable river he had hoped to find. After a few minutes, he continued uphill toward a ridge above him, along a trail the Shoshone Indians used when they came down out of the mountains to hunt buffalo. The trail is still here, only slightly widened, and we used it, as Lewis did, to climb to the Continental Divide and enter Idaho. I now descended the mountain, Lewis wrote in his journal, which I found much steeper than on the opposite side. He still believed this might be just a short portage, that at the bottom of the hill he would find a great river into which he could put the expedition's canoes and paddle rapidly to the Pacific Ocean. And at the bottom of the hill, he found his river. Today it's called the Salmon, and it does flow into the Snake, which flows into the Columbia, which flows into the Pacific. A passage by water across the continent. Full of excitement, Lewis sent Clark ahead to reconnoiter. Proceeded on an Indian road beside the river, Clark wrote, past remarkable rocks resembling pyramids. The mountains very steep, high, and rocky. The ascent so steep that it is incredible to describe. The mountains betrayed him. And then the river betrayed him too. We took a jet boat on the Salmon to see what Clark saw that day. The river is almost one continued rapid, he wrote. The mountains close. There is a perpendicular cliff on each side. The water runs with great violence from one rock to another, foaming and roaring through rocks in every direction. The passage with canoes is entirely impossible. The Salmon River leads from Idaho to the Pacific, all right, but it has earned its name, the River of No Return. After that, Lewis and Clark knew they didn't need canoes to reach the Pacific. They needed horses. Maybe you remember the rest, how Sacagawea, a Shoshone girl of 16 who had come with Lewis and Clark from Dakota carrying her infant son, recognized the Shoshone chief as her long-separated brother. Her statue stands on the Capitol grounds in North Dakota, but she is really Idaho's heroine. She helped Lewis and Clark obtain what they had to have, horses from her tribe. The horses were purchased. Lewis and Clark were able to go on 200 miles by land to the first navigable waters of the Pacific slope, complete their mission, and fill in that great blank that existed on the maps and in the human mind about America west of the Mississippi. But Lewis and Clark didn't look upon their passage through Idaho as a triumph. In fact, it was one of the greatest disappointments of human history, because Captain William Clark, standing here, knew to a certainty what no one else on Earth knew until then, that you cannot reach the Pacific coast and Asia by sailing west, that there is no Northwest Passage. The Salmon River dashed to pieces the expectations of 300 years. The dream of Columbus ended here.